The Izumo-class ships are officially helicopter destroyers, but if we trust our eyes, we could easily say that they are not really destroyers but aircraft carriers. It is that simple. Well, why does the Japan prefer to use this definition? Answering this question is more complicated. As the weapon detective, we're investigating the Izumo class, the so-called helicopter destroyer. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel before we start, and give us a thumbs up if you like our video. To be notified of our new video, please click the bell button. The biggest Japanese warship since the Second World War, the Izumo class, is one of the most important symbols of the change in the Asia-Pacific region. However, due to its constitution, Japan cannot have an offensive weapon system such as an aircraft carrier. Here, we should answer whether an aircraft carrier is an offensive weapon system. For modern weapon systems, it is always hard to find a solid mission definition. They can conduct both offensive and defensive duties. Basically, a destroyer is an escort ship. Its mission definition is to protect the fleet. But current destroyers have an offensive capability that is much greater than the Second World War battlecruisers. A country could use the same fighter jets to defend its airspace or to conduct an airstrike on other countries. The best anti-tank weapon is another tank. These steel beasts could penetrate the enemy's defensive lines or hold the enemy's armored punch. Besides, the concepts of offense and defense have many gray areas. For example, the concept of the preemptive strike is aggressive by its nature, but it serves the protection of a country. So, we could not say that an aircraft carrier is just an offensive system. Also, we could not say that an aircraft carrier is a single type of naval vessel. There are many subtypes of it. Thanks to its supercarriers, the USA can rule the seas and conduct operation against any nation overseas. The medium type of aircraft carriers of China, the UK, France, and Russia are highly capable, but they can control only some areas and they are not a real threat for many countries. The small aircraft carriers are an ideal platform for anti-submarine warfare duties, supporting multinational operations, or fighting against countries which have limited military capability. So, we define Izumo-class as an aircraft carrier rather than a helicopter destroyer, but its offensive capabilities cannot be compared to the aircraft carriers of the USA, the UK, China, and Russia. Before we start our analysis, let's take a look at the history of Japan's effort to own an aircraft carrier after the Second World War and examine the ship. After the end of the Second World War, the Allies permitted Japan to form a Coast Guard force in 1948, which was called at that time as the Maritime Safety Agency. As early as 1952, this agency put owning an escort aircraft carrier for anti-submarine warfare mission on its agenda. Surprisingly, the USA was not against this ambitious plan. In 1954, the newly established Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force took over the aircraft carrier procurement plan. Tokyo was initially considering procuring one of the Essex-class ships. However, in 1958, the construction of a new ship came to the fore. This would be a helicopter carrier and could carry 18 Sea King helicopters, 3 of which could be operated simultaneously. But the project was terminated after a while, because at that time the helicopters were not as effective as they are today. Also, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force was being reorganized, and Tokyo decided to use the budget to build a large number of cost-effective destroyers instead of a highly expensive helicopter carrier. In the late 1960s, the new and improved conventional and nuclear submarines of the Soviet Navy became the major threat for the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force. So, in 1967, Tokyo initiated the third defense build-up plan. According to the Japanese naval staff, to deal with the Soviet submarines, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force had to have escort fleets, which consist of 8 surface combatants and 6 anti-submarine warfare helicopters. As the core of an escort fleet, they planned to build the 8,300-ton helicopter destroyers, which would carry 6 helicopters. But this plan was also terminated because of budget problems. So, Japan decided to build 2 Haruna-class destroyers at first, and 2 Shirane-class destroyers later. These ships had 3 Sea Kings. In the 1970s, Soviet bombers carrying long-range cruise missiles brought aircraft carriers back to the agenda. Different from the previous plans, this time Japan was also considering the jet fighters besides the helicopters. The Harrier was the only available short takeoff and vertical landing capable jet fighter at that time. However, they were not sufficient to intercept the Tu-22M, whose NATO reporting name is Backfire. In the 1980s, Japan began considering airborne early warning and control aircraft as well as tanker aircraft. With these aircraft, the Japan Air Self-Defense Force could provide efficient air cover for the escort fleet. This was also a cost-effective solution than a carrier with the Harriers. The first concrete step toward Japan's dream of owning an aircraft carrier was the 2 Hyuna-class helicopter destroyers commissioned in 2009 and 2011. These ships were followed by the Izumo-class. The first ship of this class, JS Izumo, was laid down in 2012. She was launched on August 6, 2013, which was the 58th anniversary of the atomic bombing on Hiroshima. The ship was commissioned in 2015. The second and last Izumo-class vessel, JS Kaga, was commissioned 2 years later. The complement of the Izumo-class is 970 persons. Its empty weight is 19,500 tons, while its fully loaded displacement is 27,000 tons. The ship has a length of 248 meters, a beam of 38 meters, and a draught of 7.5 meters. The combined gas and gas configuration propulsion system consists of 4 33,525 horsepower GE IHI LM2500 IEC gas turbines. The maximum speed of Izumo-class is 30 knots. The ship has 2 Mark 15 phalanx and 2 C-RAM close-in weapon systems. The Izumo-class has a special design which reduces the radar cross-section. The air traffic control room at the rear of the bridge has a panoramic view of the flight deck. The OPS-50 active electronically scanned array radar performs both air search and air traffic control missions. Different from OPS-50 radars on the other Japanese vessels, it has only C-band search antennas. Because there are no long-range weapon systems on the Izumo-class, the X-band tracking antennas have been eliminated. The Izumo-class has a heavy bow-mounted sonar. It is not for anti-submarine warfare missions, but to detect a possible torpedo attack. The ship has 2 large elevators for the aircraft. Also, there are 3 smaller elevators, 2 of which is to carry ammunition and 1 is connected to the medical facilities. The medical facilities include a 35-bed hospital, operating rooms, intensive care units, and dental treatment units. The gas turbines have electronic fuel control systems and are controlled from the bridge. The Izumo-class can produce 60 tons of fresh water per day. Some of this water is used to clean the flight deck after air operations. It can refuel other ships at sea and also transfer fresh water, but the vessel does not have the ability to transfer aviation fuel. The Izumo-class has 2 hangars and 1 maintenance facility. Each hangar can accommodate up to 6 helicopters, while the maintenance facility has room for 2 others. Currently, in a typical mission, the Izumo-class carries 7 SH-60K anti-submarine warfare and 2 MCH-101 utility helicopters. But the ship can accommodate 28 aircraft. 5 helicopters can be operated simultaneously. 1 SH-60K always waits for an alert on the deck. This helicopter is rotated every few hours to avoid from negative effects of the sun and salt water. The ship can carry up to 400 Marines to support amphibious operations and the same number of people in the disaster relief operations. Currently, the Izumo-class cannot operate fixed-wing aircraft. Yet, in 2018, Japan decided to modify these ships to make them suitable for F-35B and V-22s. The conversion of the JS Izumo began in 2020. This is a 2-stage plan. At first, the deck of the ship will be reinforced to endure the additional weight of the F-35B as well as the heat and forces from the jet engines during vertical landing. As the second phase of the conversion work, the current trapezoidal flight deck of each vessel will be modified into a square shape. The Izumo-class will not be fitted with a ski jump ramp, because, together with the heavy bow-mounted sonar of the ship, the ski jump ramp could cause a balance problem. Also, the hangars and the maintenance facility will be modified. Japan has already ordered 42 F-35Bs. It also has V-22s. But the Japanese government has announced that there is no plan to deploy these aircraft on the Izumo-class ships. We can easily say that this announcement is just to prevent the reaction of other countries in the region. Eventually, everybody knows that we will see them on the Izumo-class's flight deck. The US Marine Corps plans to operate its F-35Bs from the Izumo-class to train Japanese forces to operate this aircraft. Why does Japan define the Izumo-class as a helicopter destroyer? The answer is obvious. Tokyo does not want to be seen aggressive. Does changing the name make a real difference? Interestingly, it works. For example, to avoid the limitations of the Montreux Convention, the USSR built aircraft cruisers. China promised not to convert Varyak into an aircraft carrier, and she passed through the Turkish Straits as a tourist attraction ship. Now, Japan has declared that we will not see its F-35Bs on its helicopter destroyers. Does Japan really need an aircraft carrier? The East China Sea is a problematic area. All countries in the region have sovereignty disputes. Again, the Chinese Navy has to use the Miyako Strait to sail the Pacific. This approximately 250-kilometer wide strait lies between the Miyako and Okinawa Islands. Naha Air Base on Okinawa Island is the southernmost fortress of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. But it is too far from the nearest air bases on Kyushu Island. Between them, there is a gap over 700 kilometers. To control this vast area, an aircraft carrier is the best option for Japan. Of course, there are some other auxiliary airfields in the region, but they are not capable of housing a large number of fighters safely. In case of a war in the south, Japan has to concentrate its air power in the Naha Air Base. It would not be wise to deploy many aircraft in a single place, considering the long-range strike capability of the Chinese H-6K bombers. An aircraft carrier could easily solve this problem. Thanks to the Izumo-class ships, the Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force can operate far from the air cover of the Japan Air Self-Defense Force. It gives defensive depth to Japan. The world is changing and the Second Cold War is rising. In this new era, Japan is naturally transforming. The Izumo-class is one of the most shining symbols of the New World Order. Two ships of this class have constantly joined multinational naval exercises. They gave the message that the region needs Japan to balance China. And many countries in the Asia-Pacific which have bad memories of the Second World War have received and accepted this message. Thanks for watching our video. And please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up if you liked our video. To be notified of our new videos, please click the bell button.